Test 1, 2. Esteemed guests, good evening and welcome to the Aquarium of the Pacific for tonight's Candidates Forum presented by Leadership Long Beach. At this time, we'd like to ask that you all please rise if you are able and remove your hats for the presentation of our national colors by the Long Beach Poly JROTC under the direction of Lieutenant Colonel Hines. Please remain standing for our Pledge of Allegiance. Ready, begin. And now, please welcome Executive Director Sean Devereaux to the stage to welcome us to tonight's event.
Hello, hello, hello. Thank you, everyone. Those in attendance in person, thank you so much for joining us. And those online watching on our live stream, thank you so much for tuning into our Candidates Forum on this October 21st, 2024. My name is Sean Devereaux. I am the Executive Director of Leadership Long Beach, and it is such an honor to be able to host our 6th Candidates Forum for the benefit of our local community. Leadership, we can applaud that for sure. Leadership Long Beach is in the business of informing, activating, and connecting our community to the things that are important to them and to issues that are important to them. And these candidates forums are one avenue for us to provide an opportunity to do all of those things for our local community to help them make better informed decisions when they go to the ballot box. These events don't produce themselves, and I am so grateful for the dedication and the hard work of an army of volunteers that worked behind the scenes to bring us to make this event possible for us all today. To our board of directors and to the moderators who are sitting up here ready to ask some really important questions to our local politicians and to the folks who are presenting some propositions for us to vote on this year. Also, I would like to provide a hearty thanks to the Long Beach City Clerk's office, to LAZ Parking that is providing free parking for all of us today, and especially to the Aquarium of the Pacific for sharing this incredible venue for us to deliver this important event tonight. I would like to allow the moderators to introduce themselves, but I will let you know who is joining us this evening. We have Rolando Cruz, we have Brandon Janney, and we have Dana Buchanan, who will be moderating this entire evening. But before we get started with the moderated presentation, I would like to introduce Tamala Austin from the City Clerk's office, who will be sharing a brief overview of some key dates about the election, including information about writing for measures. Tamala.
Good evening, everyone. I'm happy to see all these faces. So I'm here representing the City Clerk's office, and we just wanted to share with you what to expect on the Long Beach ballot. So the local contests consist of Long Beach Community College Trustee Area 4. We also have several measures, one of which are Long Beach Ballot Measure LB, Long Beach Ballot Measure JB, Long Beach Ballot Measure HC, and Long Beach Community College Ballot Measure AC. I dare you to say that fast. Also, Proposition 36, and depending on where you live, City Council District 4. Here, next And some key dates I would like to share with you. So September 26th, they started mailing out the sample ballot booklets. Some of you may have already received them. Everyone should have received them by now. October 3rd, vote by mail ballots began going out. And we happen to live in a county where most of you know that you don't have to request a vote by mail ballot. They are mailed out automatically to every registered voter. They started mailing those on October 3rd. On October 3rd, they also started opening up all of the vote by mail ballot drop boxes. October 21st, which is today, is the last day to register to vote. That just basically means it's the last day to register to vote to receive a ballot in the mail. It does not mean you cannot register and you're exempt from participating in this election. You can go to a vote center when they open, and you can register in person. So today simply means it's the last day for you to register to vote to receive a ballot by mail, okay? Which brings me to in-person voting. That begins October 26th, which is this upcoming Saturday, okay? And then November 5th is Election Day. Next slide, please. And so just some additional information that we wanted to share regarding the vote centers. So there are over 400 plus vote centers and drop boxes throughout LA County. But in the city of Long Beach, there are 28 vote centers in Long Beach. You can cast a ballot, you can actually go and cast a ballot in any vote center throughout LA County, as well as a drop box throughout LA County. But for your convenience, in the city of Long Beach, we have 28 vote centers. And out of the 28, this Saturday, October 26th, we have 6 that are opening on Saturday. And those will be our 11-day vote centers. So we have 6 in Long Beach. And then the remaining 22 will open November 2nd, and those are 4-day vote centers. In addition to in-person voting, we have 20 vote-by-mail drop boxes all throughout Long Beach. We have the list on our city clerk website. That's also at lavote.gov, longbeach.gov/elections, lavote.gov. For any of that information. You can also call our office if you have any questions. I also just kind of wanted to just reiterate 3 ways to return your ballot. You can vote in person at a vote center, and you'll be using the ballot marking device, or you can drop your ballot in a United States Postal Service mailbox, or you can use the ballot drop box. Few other things I wanted to just kind of touch base on. Why local elections are important. Voting in your local election has a direct impact on your day-to-day life as well as your family. I know this is a big election and everyone's focused on the presidential race, but local elections are super important. You get to decide how your tax dollars are spent, from repairing potholes to upgrades to your local school. So we always like to emphasize how important the local elections are, even in big elections, presidential elections like this. So we just want to encourage everybody to make a plan, vote on November 5th. And do you want me to touch base on your other item, or you're going to go later? Yes? Now? Okay, all right. So because we have several measures on the ballot, we wanted to just kind of give you an overview on if anyone for any future election is interested in becoming an argument writer, what that entails. A lot of people don't know this process. So we follow the Long Beach Municipal Code. And if anybody's interested in reading the details of what that looks like, you can go to City Clerk's website. Long Beach Municipal Code is what we follow. The code begins at 1.15.410. Again, if you have any questions, you can call our office. But this is what we use as our guide. So the way it works is that the mayor announces that he's accepting requests for argument writers for a measure. Okay, once the mayor announces that he's accepting requests for a measure, then our office, the city clerk, we post a notice of application for argument writers and due dates. Okay, then the city clerk receives and records all of the applications that are submitted by the deadline, and this is a hard deadline. Once we record all of the applications, then we forward them to the mayor, and the mayor, with the approval of city council, designates who will write the arguments for and against a measure. And the mayor announces who will be the designated argument writers. Okay. Now, it's important to note that the authors of the arguments have the option to prepare and submit rebuttal arguments, okay? So that is an option, just so you all know. And when this process begins, everything is public records, meaning we send out press releases, we update our website daily, weekly. There are a lot of laws that we have to follow in accordance with making this information available to the public. So when this process begins, the city clerk website contains all the forms, dates, instructions, and our staff is available to answer all questions. So anyone that's interested, it's not a question of how do you or where do I find this information. This information is publicized throughout this entire process. And that's pretty much it. November 5th, again, is rapidly approaching. Make a plan, go vote. If you know someone that's not registered, I urge you to encourage them to register. And please, if you hear anyone, if they say that they missed the deadline to register to vote, there are other options available. Again, in-person voting begins on Saturday, October 26th, so no one would be disenfranchised to not be able to participate in the election process. Thank you.
Thank you, Tamala, thank you. All right, let's get this show started. And I'll turn this over to the moderators, Rolando, Brandon, and Dana. Take it away.
Thank you, Sean. Okay, so my name is Rolando Cruz. I was a graduate of Leadership Long Beach Institute class of 2010, and I was president in 14 and 15. I am now retired from working a lot with city government. I worked for Long Beach Transit, the city of Santa Monica, and I retired from the city of Culver City as their chief transportation officer. And I will pass it now to, I guess, Dana.
Hi, my name is Dana Buchanan. I'm a graduate also of Leadership Long Beach class of 2010, the best and smallest class ever. I own a company in town called Primal Alchemy Catering, and I'm also currently the president of the Women's Business Council of the Long Beach Chamber.
Hello, everyone. My name is Brandon Janney. I was a part of the Youth Leadership Long Beach program of 2024. I just recently graduated this last June, and now I currently serve as a youth chair for our new applicants and also as the youth representative for this forum today. I currently attend Milliken High School, and I am a senior there. Yeah, thank you.
All right. Okay, so now we're excited to begin the forum, so let's get going. Before we start, I'm just going to ask everybody to think deeply about why you're here. One of the reasons we're here is, we got to think about our community, your concerns, your thoughts, and your passions, and how the people you choose to lead this city and our community will embody the spirit of all that you care about. We have learned through Leadership Long Beach that community engagement is a very important step to an increased awareness of how to make a difference in the world we live in, starting locally. So we want to thank the entire team of Leadership Long Beach alums, the volunteers who put this forum together, especially those from the adult and youth programs, and for the cooperation and support from the Aquarium of the Pacific, the Long Beach City Clerk's office as well. As mentioned earlier, this is the 6th Candidates Forum Leadership Long Beach has sponsored, having done our first in 2014, and our most recent in February 2024. So before we start with our first 2 candidates, I'd like to take care of a few housekeeping items. So first, if you have a phone, please pull it out and turn it off. Or if you have to have it, put it on vibrate, that's fine. We're also going to ask that you hold all of your applause until the end of each panel session. And we want to thank you for your cooperation on that right now.
So tonight we'll be hearing from candidates running for the Long Beach City College Board of Trustees, Area 4, the Long Beach City Council District 4, and we'll also be hearing about Measure LB, the Utility Users Tax, Charter Amendment JB, the Civil Service and HR, Charter Amendment HC, the Harbor and Public Utilities, Measure HC, Long Beach City College $990 million bond, and Proposition 36. The forum will follow a format where all the candidate speakers will be asked to make an opening statement. Once each has completed their opening statement, a moderator will begin by asking question number 1. Each candidate will be asked to provide a 1-minute response to each question. Following the question and answer portion, each candidate will then provide a 1-minute closing statement. Candidates for Long Beach City College and Long Beach City Council will also have an opportunity to extend their remarks by 1 minute using a blue bonus card that they'll be given. This card can be used one time. You must hold the blue card up before you answer the question. The questions for tonight's forum were determined by Leadership Long Beach alums, local partner organizations, and other stakeholders. Remember, this is a forum, not a debate, so no rebuttal statements will be permitted. We are also counting on all candidates, speakers, and audience members to support the rules and agreements as outlined.
All right, so let's get started with the candidates for the Long Beach City College Board of Trustees. Since 1927, Long Beach City College has been at the heart of the community, providing educational programs with a commitment to excellence in student learning in a culturally diverse and vibrant environment. As one of the largest of the 116 community colleges in California, Long Beach City College is governed by the 5-member elected Long Beach Community College District Board of Trustees and serves the city of Long Beach, Signal Hill, Lakewood, and Santa Catalina Island. Tonight, we'll hear from 2 candidates running for the trustee position in Area 4. The candidates running for this position are Dick Gaylord and Enette Morton.
Okay, so welcome Mr. Gaylord and Ms. Morton. Thank you so much for being here. All right, so we're going to start off with Mr. Gaylord. We're going to offer you to do a 1-minute opening statement, and then afterwards we'll follow up with Ms. Morton's 1-minute opening statement. In order to help you manage the length of your remarks, we're using a card system. A yellow card will be held up when you have 15 seconds remaining, and then a red card when you're out of time. So y'all can see where she's at? All right. So, Mr. Gaylord, your 1-minute opening statement, please.
Thank you. Thank you, Leadership Long Beach. For the past 97 years, thousands of Long Beach residents have had a personal experience with Long Beach City College. They're all grateful for what the college did for them, and they loved the college. Over the past several years, the college has had its challenges, ranking in the bottom 10 of the California community colleges, several lawsuits, one being a multi-year lawsuit with a past president, and a warning from the Accreditation Commission. A new, experienced member can play a huge role in turning these challenges and others into opportunities. I am Dick Gaylord, and I will work hard to bring Long Beach City College back to being in the top 10 of the California community colleges. I look forward to your questions.
Thank you, Mr. Gaylord. Ms. Morton, please make your 1-minute opening statement.
Good evening, Long Beach. I'm Dr. Annette Morton for Long Beach City College Board of Trustees, District 4. For more than a decade, I have supported student, faculty, and staff success as a college administrator. I've worked at Pepperdine, UC Berkeley, and now at Cal State Long Beach. I'm an Air Force kid, and I am a first-generation college graduate with my doctorate in education and master's in business administration from Pepperdine, as well as a communications degree from Cal Poly Pomona. I also have served our community in various leadership capacities, including as the co-chair of Long Beach City Youth and Family Commission and as a member of the LBCC $30 million McKinsey Scott Grant Advisory Board. As a trustee, I will bring my current education expertise to the board and work to make sure our college graduates have successful careers in the community. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Morton.
So let's move on to your first question. You will have 1 minute to answer unless you use your blue card. Let's start with you, Ms. Morton. There's a list. At Leadership Long Beach, we believe in a set of principles that are essential to all great leaders. On the table in front of you is a list of these principles that we embrace. Please select one of those that resonates with you and tell us why.
Thank you for that question. The principle that really resonates with me is personal responsibility. Because as a leader and a leader in the community, it's up to us to all take personal responsibility for our actions, for our decisions, and how we lead in the community. As a leader, it is your responsibility to make sure that you are acknowledging those around you, have respect, as well as guide those who are coming up behind you and mentor those in the community. And you can't do that without having personal responsibility. So that really resonates with me. It's something I strive to live for every day in my jobs, in my personal life with my daughter, my family, as well as those I meet along the way in the community. So personal responsibility is something I take very seriously. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Morton. Mr. Gaylord, it's your turn. Do you want me to repeat the question for you?
No, I'm okay. All of these principles are important to any leader. I'm going to select teamwork, particularly because I think teamwork is so essential at Long Beach City College. One of the trustees mentioned once that the board was dysfunctional. If you have a board of 5 people responsible for a community college the size of Long Beach City College, you've got to work together. There's got to be teamwork. You don't really have to go out to dinner with one another and to be close with each other, but you need to work for the best of the college and carrying out the vision, the purpose of the college. So teamwork is my favorite today.
Thank you, Mr. Gaylord.
Okay, thank you both. Let's move on to our next question. This time we'll start with you, Ms. Morton. What lived experiences, both personal and professional, have prepared you for this position?
So as The personal experience that has prepared me for this experience is, as I mentioned before, I'm an Air Force kid. And that entailed moving around the country, moving around the world, and really embodying where you were going to live new and learning about that. And with that experience, it helped me become a lifelong learner and really embrace the importance of education and making sure that everybody had the opportunity for education. So with that, I took that experience and really embodied it and lived it, and now I am a passionate person for education, and that has prepared me for this role. I will bring all of my experience as an educator, as well as my experience as a student, my experience working with my daughter and my daughter's friends to this board. I know how to work through the complexities of the educational experience in this current education environment, as well as I work with students, faculty, and staff every day in my position at Cal State Long Beach. So I understand what they're going through, how to get them through it, and I can see what they need to do to be successful in their roles. So I will bring all of that expertise with me to the board because of my lived experience and because of my passion for education. I have worked with students in their current state, and I'm proud to say that I have seen lots of graduates who I've helped through the years who are thriving now in their education as well as their career pursuits. So again, thank you for the question, and I look forward to the next question.
Thank you, Ms. Morton. All right, Mr. Gaylord, you're next. Would you like me to repeat the question?
Yes, please.
Okay. What lived experiences, both personal and professional, have prepared you for this position?
Thank you. When I went to college, I was sort of a shy guy, didn't talk much, just went to classes, but I joined a fraternity, and in that fraternity, I was elected president. I was stunned and didn't know what was involved, but it was my first experience in leadership and a great experience because it taught me that I could do things I had never done before and that I didn't have to be shy but could get along with people. From that, I graduated from college and became a teacher. What an honor. What a leadership position for me. My mother called one day to remind me of the obligation that goes with being a teacher. You want to be prepared, she said. You want to do the very best for the students in your classes. After college, I worked at a college for 4 years for the administrative dean and as director of admissions. I learned, again, a lot about leadership and was forced into being a leader. People were following me, were listening to me. Beyond that, I seemed to be the leader in every organization I was a part of. I was chairman of the Long Beach Planning Commission, chairman of the Civil Service Commission, chairman of the State Board of Behavioral Science Examiners. But one of the most exciting times for me is the 24 years I spent as chairman of the Personnel Commission at Long Beach City College and my involvement with the college on the Presidential Search Committee, working with the foundation, working on so many, many things. And I found that in each one of these positions, I learned more and more about leadership. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Gaylord.
Okay,
Okay.
so the blue cards are done, so that means the rest of the responses are all going to be in 1 minute. So, Mr. Gaylord, we're going to go ahead and start with question number 3 for you. So, there has been some animosity amongst the Long Beach CC board, members on various issues, including dealing with the former president superintendent. How would you, as a new board member, work on issues bringing the board together and focusing on students?
Thank you. As I said earlier, when we're given an obligation, a position, we have to honor that position. I don't know of any situation I've ever been involved in with a group where I didn't get along with others. I think if we stay focused on our goal, on the mission at the college, if we stay focused on the students, on the faculty, on the obligation we have to the community, there really shouldn't be a problem getting along. We can disagree, but we can disagree and honor one another for a different point of view. I don't see this as a major issue at all. Often on small boards, one person is blamed for the people not getting along. Well, it takes all 5 people to be working together, and if one doesn't get along, that can be worked out. There's no reason for this. I don't understand it.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Gaylord. It's your turn, Ms. Morton. Would you like me to repeat the question? Yes, please. Okay. So there has been some animosity amongst LBCC board members on various issues, including dealing with the former president superintendent. How would you, as a new board member, work on issues bringing the board together and focusing on students?
Thank you. As a new trustee, it would be incumbent upon myself with my personal responsibility to make sure I am understanding each of the positions of our board members. As long as we focus on our students and remember that we have a responsibility to our students to provide the best educational opportunities they have while they're at the campus, I believe that is what will lead us through any kind of difficulty, any kind of challenge, and always keeping them focused will be the way that we can work through any challenges that we have on the board. Passionate individuals will always have passionate responses, and making sure that we understand where each of us are coming from before we try to be understood ourselves and responsible for those relationships is the key to getting through any challenges, and I believe that we can do so successfully. There's nothing that we can overcome when we work for the students.
Thank you, Ms. Morton.
So we're on our final question. Ms. Morton, you're first. During the pandemic, many students at all levels of education, K through 12, community college and university, fell behind on their academic programs, and some have not returned to higher levels. What solutions do you have to bridge that gap and increase students' learning and graduation?
Thank you. I believe it's very important that we get to our students when they are in the middle school, because if they're not working on their, what we call their A through G initiatives, A through G requirements, they're not going to be successful when they get to our higher education institutions. So making sure that they are enrolled in the proper classes for their level, and then also working with them to be dual enrolled with higher education opportunities at the Long Beach City College, as well as working with our faculty and students to get together with their higher education needs. One of the great things that I really want to work on is the Long Beach College Promise, because it is a way to help those students who are falling behind get focused on what they want to do in the future, as well as help them gather their thoughts on the goals of their higher education and career needs. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Gaylord, I'm going to repeat the question. During the pandemic, many students at all levels of education, K through 12, community college and university, fell behind on their academic programs, and some have not yet returned to higher levels. What solutions do you have to bridge that gap and increase students' learning and graduation?
Thank you. I think this is where faculty members and counselors play an even greater role than they do in the classroom. I think students needed and need a lot of hand-holding after an experience like COVID. Some of them were tempted not to continue their education. Others had not worked as well as they should have at home and came back to class realizing they were behind. I think teachers, counselors can handhold and help students through a crisis like the one we experienced with COVID.
Thank you, Mr. Gaylord.
Let's move on to our closing statements. We'll start with Mr. Gaylord. Please share your closing 1 minute statement.
You're talking about closing statements? Okay. Few know better than the faculty and staff how we can make Long Beach City College one of the most successful and respected community colleges in our state. With my 30 years of experience at the college and in higher education and in business, I will work with them to make this a reality. I ask you to join the college's full and part-time faculty and classified staff, along with education leaders and elected officials, in supporting my candidacy. All of the individuals I've made reference to have a connection to and love of Long Beach City College. If elected, I promise to work hard and long with the board, the faculty, and the community to assure that every student who enrolls at Long Beach City College is given all the tools needed to succeed. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Gaylord. Ms. Martin, your closing statement, please.
Thank you, Leadership Long Beach, for this opportunity tonight. I really appreciate it. Again, as a college administrator, I am engaged with students, faculty, and staff on success initiatives daily. I have firsthand experience navigating the complexities and opportunities of today's education system. I am proud to say I'm endorsed by Mayor Rex Richardson, majority of the City Council, LBCC Board of Trustees, multiple labor unions, as well as the Healthcare Workers of America. I'm the only candidate in this race to be endorsed by the LA County Democratic Party. I know my expertise will make a positive impact on the board and help continue the positive momentum at LBCC. I'm Dr. Annette Morton, again, for Long Beach City College Board of Trustees. Thank you and good night.
Thank you, Ms. Morton. And this concludes the race for Long Beach Community College District Board of Trustees, Area 4. Good luck, candidates.
Okay, as they're getting off, we're going to get ready to start moving forward with our ballot initiatives. As mentioned earlier, we've got 4 local ballot initiatives and 1 statewide that we're going to discuss today. And for those of y'all who remember, we're going to be reading right out of the official sample ballot that you should have gotten. And if you did not get, I'm sure they can get a copy for you at the city clerk's office. So the first ballot measure that we will be talking about is the measure LB, which is the utility users tax. So I'm going to read it directly out of the ballot. So, shall the measure to maintain general city services, including 911 response, firefighter, paramedic, pothole street repairs, improve storm drains, libraries, public health, and homeless services by eliminating the exemption for electrical corporations and government agencies using gas to make electricity and applying Long Beach's existing 5% gas utility user tax to said corporations and agencies, generating approximately $15 million annually, spending disclosure, and all funds used locally be adopted. That's a question. So, go ahead.
Here to speak in support of the measure is Laura Dowd, Long Beach City Auditor. Unfortunately, there is no declared opposition listed in the voter's guide. Ms. Dowd, you have 3 minutes.
Thank you very much. I'm Laura Dowd, the City Auditor. However, I am speaking on my personal capacity today on behalf of myself. So anyway, it's a pleasure to speak for Measure LB. It's a pretty simple measure. Currently, for decades, all residents and businesses and power plants in the city of Long Beach have paid the 5% utility users tax. there are only 2 entities in the city of Long Beach who don't pay the utility users tax due to an exemption. However, with the deregulation of the electric industry in California, the exemption is no longer relevant, and this exemption ought to be removed. So Measure LB is the removal of the exemption on 2 power plants in Long Beach to pay the 5% utility users tax that every other resident, business, and power plants in Long Beach are paying. So it's very simple. This removal of the exemption would require the 2 power plants in Long Beach, AES and LADWP, to pay, again, the 5% utility users tax that everyone else pays. We anticipate it will generate approximately $15 million to Long Beach, approximately $7.5 million each for each power plant. So $15 million. This $15 million funding will preserve funding for city services for all of us here in Long Beach, including public safety, fire police, parks and recreation, youth programs, after-school programs, senior services, homelessness outreach, mental health, and many important city services we need here in Long Beach. So I'm happy to speak on behalf of Measure LB and hope that you will join me in supporting this measure. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ms. Dell. We appreciate you being here.
The next ballot measure is Charter Amendment JB. I will read from the voter guide. Shall the measure amending the city's charter to combine the civil service and human resources departments into one unified department to manage all employee recruitment, hiring, and certifications, and establish an independent civil service employee rights and appeals commission to resolve complaints regarding civil service roles, to adjudicate, sorry, I always have a problem with that word, classified employee disciplinary appeals, and to implement classified hiring preferences for Long Beach residents, students from local colleges and universities, current employees, and certain internships and apprenticeships be adopted. So here to speak in favor of the measure is Lamont Nguyen from the Long Beach Firefighters Association, and speaking against the measure is Felton Williams. Welcome. Each speaker will have 2 minutes to present their case. We'll then ask 3 questions where each speaker will have an opportunity to provide a 1-minute response, followed by a 1-minute closing statement. In order to help you manage the length of your remarks, we're using a card system. A yellow card will be held up when you have 15 seconds remaining, and a red card when you're out of time. CJ's right over here. We'll start with Mr. Nguyen. Let us hear your 2-minute opening statement.
Hi, good evening, everybody. My name is Lamont Nguyen. I'm actually a firefighter paramedic here with the Long Beach Fire Department. I'm also an executive board member with the Long Beach Firefighters Local 372. In my capacity today, supporting this measure, JB. It would be shocking to say today if everybody knew that it took almost over 7 months on the average to hire a city employee, and that's not just with the fire department. With that, because of the outdated hiring practices that we currently have, we have now a 22% vacancy rate citywide. That has a direct impact on service delivery delays, response times, street repairs, trash pickup, an overworked workforce. I personally was almost not able to be here today because I was mandatory to work. Fortunately, somebody did step up and work for me this evening, so I could be here to speak to these very important measures. And recruitment and retention. For the first time in a long time, I can just speak to the fire department. We've had people leave the fire service during application process because it took so long. And then we've also had people leave who've been here more than 5 years because they were tired of waiting for additional staffing to come on board. integrity and equity issue as well. Thousands of working families, local students, colleges students shut out the opportunity to obtain good paying union jobs because of the hiring practice that we currently uphold. How do we solve this? This measure JB gives us the opportunity to actually do that with 3 pillars. 1, consolidation of civil service and HR. It integrates the flexibility and innovation of HR with transparent and merit-based principles of civil service, in turn creating an agile and effective public workforce. 2, we already talked about in the reading with creating a Civil Service Employee Rights and Appeals Commission. And 3, implementing innovative hiring preferences for graduates of local colleges and universities, participants of apprenticeship programs, Long Beach local residents.
Thank you, Mr. Nguyen. Mr. Williams, we're ready for your 2-minute opening statement.
Thank you, and thank you, Leadership Long Beach, for hosting this forum. I am a proud graduate of Leadership Long Beach. I served as Vice President of Administration and also Chair of Programs for Leadership Long Beach. I want to just give a bit of an overview for civil service, because this measure is basically to combine the two, to combine civil service with HR. The Penal and Civil Service Reform Act of 1883 created the U.S. Civil Service Commission. The act ended the spoils system where positions in government employment were awarded based on party affiliation, loyalty, and donation to office holders. For the first time, appointments to all citizens was based on merit and were given to the best qualified candidate. Merit-based civil service systems followed in the states and at the local level. From 1900 to 1930, the number of civil service systems expanded across the country, focusing on competitive exams. In 1940, the U.S. Congress required that state agencies administering Social Security funds use merit-based civil service systems. With the rise of public sector collective bargaining, the civil rights movement, civil service was impacted, thereby ushering in the idea of equal employment opportunity, affirmative action, and equal pay. The primary goal of the civil service has been and continues to be to ensure that appointments are based on merit and ability as determined through a competitive examination process. The civil service enacted 9 merit system principles to improve the quality of public service by recruiting employees from all segments of our society, providing equal pay for work of equal value, and retaining and separating employees on the basis of their performance.
Thank you, Mr. Williams.
Okay, so let's go ahead and proceed on to the questions. We're going to be asking you 3 different questions. We're going to start off with Mr. Williams. You'll have 1 minute for each your response. So how will we, the city, measure the JB impact on diversity, equity, and inclusion in the City of Long Beach's workforce?
Let me describe it this way. Currently, the civil service system is founded on the principle of law. It has a legal foundation. The Measure JB purports to do one thing, and that is to combine civil service with human resources and to essentially take over the work of civil service. Again, civil service is based on a legal foundation. This measure would change that, where the legal foundation would no longer be necessary. Voting for this measure would end civil service. And again, the requirements for positions in government would be lost.
Thank you, Mr. Williams. Mr. Nguyen, let me repeat the question. How will we measure the JB impact on diversity, equity, and inclusion in the City of Long Beach's workforce?
Thank you for the question. So again, like I reiterated earlier, when combining both civil service and human resources, integrating the flexibility, the innovation of HR with the transparency and merit-based principles of civil service, the inclusion of diversity and the inclusion initiatives are already there. That's something that's already being practiced by the city through the HR department. So united, it would actually allow us to kind of combat that effort together and apply both principles when, in return, allows us to have a more agile, effective public workforce. And these are metrics that we can measure. There still is going to be the Employee Rights and Appeals Commission. There's still an entity of the Civil Rights Commission within the HR department. Therefore, it just allows us to get more done in a more convenient way where there's more streamlined process and less bottlenecks. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Gwynn.
Let's go ahead and move on to our second question. This time we'll start with Mr. Nguyen. One of the main reasons this measure is up for consideration is that the hiring process takes very long. So, if passed, how will this change improve the timeliness of the hiring process?
Excellent question that applies directly to the fire service I can speak on. So again, as I touched on in the opening statement, it takes way too long for us to onboard potential candidates who are qualified to fill positions that are absolutely needed. That's what we do. We respond to calls, and we're there to solve problems, and we need workforce behind us. I did happen to poll the last class that were hired, and they applied in October of 2022, and they weren't actually hired on until September of 23. Meanwhile, we had huge vacancies in our firefighter and paramedic ranks, and it allowed for us to basically continue this doing more with less philosophy of the workforce. Whereas if we pass this measure, it will allow us to see sustainable results to be able to get those people in those positions so that when any of us call 911 or have an emergency in the community, we can respond much faster.
Thank you, Mr. Nguyen. Next is you, Mr. Williams. Would you like me to repeat the question?
Yes. You want me to speak on this, on the same question? Are you
Yes.
asking me to speak on the same question?
Yes.
Yes. What people have to understand is this. Civil Service's job is to recruit and refer candidates to city departments for employment. Civil Service does not hire. Where the lag occurs, basically, in hiring is in the city departments. The city departments have the list to make the selections from. And what is occurring more frequently than ever is that the departments are not hiring from the list. Again, the job of civil service is to recruit and refer candidates for positions in the city departments. Civil service does not hire. So when we're talking about streamlining hiring, we have to be able to look at where the bottlenecks are. And those bottlenecks are not in civil service, they're with the hiring departments.
Thank you, Mr. Williams.
So let's move on to our third and final question. Mr. Williams, you'll be up first. Question is, the commission's role is to provide independent assessment of applicants' qualifications. Should JB pass and HR take over this function, how will the independence be maintained and or improved?
Can you repeat that?
The commission's role is to provide independent assessment of an applicant's qualifications. Should JB pass and HR take over this function, how will the independence be maintained or improved?
Here again, there's two distinctions. One, civil service is governed by rules and regulations. They don't make up the rules as they go along. And those rules and regulations have to apply to everybody equally. If HR takes over that role, they're not governed by those same rules and regulations. So they can write the rules as they go along and change those rules as they may want. But again, that's the distinction with civil service and HR. Civil service, again, functions on rules and regulations, and they have to abide by those rules and regulations. So if those rules and regulations are no longer there, then how do you maintain a system of fairness and equity?
Thank you, Mr. Williams. Mr. Nguyen, let me repeat the question. The commission's role is to provide independent assessment of applicants' qualifications. Should JB pass and HR take over this function, how will the independence be maintained and/or improved?
I think the key word there is improvement, because working together, we're obviously going to be better. I think there's a misconception sometimes where you're saying that we're getting rid of civil service. They're just being joined together. So maintaining that independent civil service employee rights and appeals commission aspect of it, to address the complaints and disciplinary actions, and to maintain that merit-based hiring standard is important, because now you have two entities that are involved that are going to be able to streamline this process to fulfill being able to have a conversation between professionals on who's the best candidates. And so when you talk about the independent side of it, I think that that's where working together, we're always better. And under one department, we also have the governing body between the city manager and also the city council as well. So there are factions in place to make sure that these things are met.
Thank you, Mr. Nguyen.
Okay, so why don't we go ahead and wrap up this with some closing statements. Mr. Nguyen, you're first this time.
Thank you. So fire service in general, pretty reactive, right, in nature. Emergency happens, you call, we respond, we solve the problem. We always solve the problem, and I think that's important to recognize, because what we realize here with this current hiring practice is that there's a domino effect. So the longer it takes to get the next generation of first responders, be it firefighters, police officers, on the job faster, the longer it takes for us, as those first responders, to get to your life emergency, to your loved ones. And as we all know, as people who live in this city and work in this city, this is a busy city. That's why I chose to be here. I look around in this audience, and I see people who are streaming at home, and I know there's a bit of a firefighter in all of us. So what I ask you is that we vote yes and pass this Measure JB so that we can once and for all put an end to this fire that's been slow burning for decades. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Williams, let's hear your closing statement.
Make no mistake, if the vote to approve the ballot measure passes, civil service will no longer exist. The voters will be invalidating civil service by approving the measure. Hiring for all city jobs will come under the direct jurisdiction of the mayor and city manager without the benefit of verifying for experience, qualifications, or mental fitness, which is the case for police officers. The city's Human Resources Office does not have the same legal mandate to certify the eligibility of potential employees that are part of the structure of civil service. Ask yourself the question, what will hiring a police officer or fireman look like without the requirements that are part of civil service? In closing, civil service was designed to prevent fraud and abuse in government hiring. It needs to be protected. Please join me in voting no on Measure JB, along with Jean Bixby-Smith, Dr. Mike Walter, Dr. Minnie Douglas, Ray Gabelich, Dr. Jenny Baxter, Nikki Brown-Tennant, former aide to Congressman Alan Lowenthal, Jane Roeder, director of the center at CSU Long Beach.
Thank you.
And Braden Phillips, former bureau chief for the Long Beach Police Department.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Williams. All right, this concludes our discussion about Charter Amendment JB. Let's thank our speakers. A round of applause.
Thank you, John. We're now ready to, for our discussion about Charter Amendment HC. If the speakers could come forward. I will read the measure in the voter's guide while they are coming forward. HC, Long Beach City Special Election, Municipal Election, Measure HC. Shall the measure amending the charter to reduce Harbor and Public Utilities Commissioner terms to 4 years, transfer authority over Harbor Department employment and personnel matters from the Board of Commissioners to the Department Chief Executive Officer, accepting the board-appointed Chief Operating Officer, Executive Officer to the Board and Board staff, and increasing penalties for violations of Harbor Department rules from $500 to $1,000, and changing the Harbor budget approval date, be adopted. Here to speak in support of the measure is Christina Jason, and to speak against the measure is Ian Patton. Let's review the format before we dive in. Each speaker will have 2 minutes to present their case. We'll then ask 3 questions where each speaker will have an opportunity to provide a 1-minute response, followed by a 1-minute closing statement. In order to help you manage your time, you have CJ up here, which will be holding up cards. Yellow means 15 seconds remaining. A red card means you're out of time. We'll start with Ms. Jason, who has 2 minutes to speak in support of the measure. Please share your opening statement now.
Thank you, Leadership Long Beach. So my name is Christina Jason, and I'm strictly here in my capacity as a resident of District 7, who read and supports this measure. The city charter is a thoughtful living document that requires periodic updates to remain relevant and effective. Measure HC is a good governance cleanup measure that brings the Harbor Department that does business as the Port of Long Beach into alignment with the standard operating procedures of other city commissions and departments. The port is an important economic engine for our region, and it placed this measure before residents to help streamline operations to meet the growing demands of our region. Measure HC advances efficiency and accountability in 4 key areas. It will create consistency in term limits. It'll align approval of the Harbor Department's budget process with the cities. It will increase penalties and violations for harbor ordinances to hold tenants and operators accountable, and it will align the hiring practices and process for onboarding candidates with all other city departments by shifting limited authority to the department head.
Thank you. Mr. Patton, you have 2 minutes to speak against the measure.
Thank you. I think of Measure HC as sort of the evil twin sister of Measure JB. What we're seeing here between the two of them is kind of a systematic effort to remove the safeguards on the hiring process in the city of Long Beach. JB is going to remove the safeguards and the fair hiring standards for 6,000 city employees, and then HC is going to extend that, particularly if JB passes and gets rid of the civil service, it's going to extend that to the port, where we have 650 positions and $100 million payroll. And instead of having the Harbor Commission as a check on unchecked hiring power, it's going to centralize that. It's going to centralize it just like it does with JB, with the city manager, and ultimately de facto the mayor. It's going to do that with the port director in the Port of Long Beach. And you're basically going to have a system where you can get political payback with high-paying jobs, cronyism, nepotism. We're going to see that infect the entire city workforce. This is a really dangerous measure. And frankly, it's part of a systematic attempt that we've seen over a multi-years. With every election year, we see ballot measures that are intended to erode the good government protections that were put in generations ago. You know, we got the civil service over a century ago. We got term limits over 30 years ago. We got independent commissions like the Police Oversight Commission, the Independent Water Board, and they've all been sort of, their power is being taken away from the independent residents, and they're being molded into these new amalgams, or they're having their independent powers taken away. And if we do this with Measure HC, this is tremendous power that's being consolidated.
Time. Thank you, Mr. Patton. We're going to move on to the questions. So each speaker will have 1 minute to answer each question. We'll start with you, Mr. Patton. How does the passage of this measure serve the constituents of Long Beach by shortening the terms of the commissioners from 6 years to 4 years?
So the shortening of the terms aspect of this is a really important thing, which a lot of people might not notice, but it's so essential, especially at the port. And I was actually at an event last night that had two former harbor commissioners, Tom Fields and Susan Wise, and Susan really made an impassioned plea against Measure HC as a former harbor commissioner. She said, you need that time, that extended time on the commission to learn the job and to deal with these long-term projects that exist at the port. I mean, they deal with sometimes multi-decade capital improvement projects. And you need citizens on these commissions who are going to be non-political, not under the thumb of the political process, exercising independent judgment.
Thank you. Ms. Jason, let me repeat the question. How does the passage of this measure serve the constituents of Long Beach by shortening the terms from 6 years to 4 years?
So currently, the Board of Harbor Commissioners serve 2 6-year terms for a total of 12 years. And on the Utilities Commission, they serve 2 5-year terms for a total of 10 years. This measure creates consistency across the city. Right now, every other commission, including even our governing bodies, such as our council members, serve 4-year terms. So this measure doesn't take away the total time a commissioner can serve. It is bringing it to 3 4-year terms for a total of 12 years. So for the utilities, they actually gain an additional 2 years that a commissioner can serve. For Harbor, nothing changes. It's still 12 years. What the 4 years does, instead of 6, is actually brings them up for consideration on are they serving the residents of Long Beach well. And so instead of waiting every 6 years to look at that, it will now be every 4, and it will be aligned across all commissions and departments.
Thank you, Ms. Jason.
All right, so let's move on to the next question. Ms. Jason, you're first this time. Here's the question. What are the advantages and/or disadvantages of transferring the appointing authority from the Harbor Commission to the CEO of the Harbor?
Thank you. I think it's very important to note that the Harbor Department is an enterprise-funded department that is separate and does not operate under the city manager. So Measure JB has no bearing on HC. It is a completely standalone. That's why it's brought to the ballot measure separately. Right now, the port does its hiring just like any other city department. It waits on a list from civil service that would not change. It conducts its merit-based hiring through its separate human resources division, which is not part of the collapse of JB. And essentially, you apply to the open job, you go through the interview process and testing, and then your name is selected as the top candidate. And the additional step that Harbor requires is for your name to be read out loud at a Harbor Commission meeting. This will remove that process. If you go back and watch Harbor meetings, you will find that all it is a name being read out loud and saying, welcome on board, and you move forward. And that additional step, because Harbor no longer meets on a weekly basis, the commission, it can add at times up to 30 days to the hiring process and cost candidates.
Thank you, Ms. Jason. Mr. Patton, let me repeat the question. What are the advantages and/or disadvantages of transferring the appointing authority from the Harbor Commission to the CEO of the Harbor?
Well, my counterpart here just said it. The current system has the process out in the light of day, before a committee with open hearings. This would bring the process back behind closed doors so that anything can go on without the public being aware. No check and balance to the system. And it is being sold to the public as a package, partly because it's doing the same thing as JB in the port, but really because the intention is to kind of confuse the voters with a bunch of ballot measures. It's an alphabet soup. Just vote yes on everything. You're going to be sent mailers with smiling seniors, young people. Everybody's just saying vote yes and don't look at the details. And if you don't look at the details, you're actually going to be sacrificing your own good government systems in this city. She said consistency. Well, we don't want consistency moving in the wrong direction. We want to be moving in the direction of better government, more transparency, more safeguards, not just for the current Harbor Commission, which has the spectacle. Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Patton.
Okay, we're on to the third and final question. We'll start with you, Mr. Patton, this time. How can we maintain independence in hiring of port employees with the elimination of the Harbor Commission public hearings?
Well, exactly, and what I was going to say was the spectacle of the current harbor commissioners giving up their own power. And that is really an unfortunate thing to witness when you have certain commissioners who are acting as pawns of the political structure. But this is something that is, and you may say, then what's the difference? But this is something that's going to be with us forever. You know, you make this change to the charter, it's going to be there basically forever. And any hope of having a more transparent government, a more responsive government in the future is going to be taken away. So these kind of things matter. They're complicated to the voters, but our port is a multi-billion-dollar institution, and it has a dramatic effect on the quality of life, not just the economy in our region, but air quality, regulations that affect whether people literally live and die in what the LA Times called the 710 diesel death zone. So this is a really important position.
Thank you. Ms. Jason, let me repeat the question. How can we maintain independence of hiring of port employees with the elimination of the Harbor Commission public hearings?
So I think it's important to note that, as I stated in the beginning, the charter is already a thoughtful document. And there's section 511 of the charter that already sets guardrails around nepotism, hiring of family members, and those who are married into people who are into positions. So guardrails are already in place. The laws have changed, pay is public, and it's key to note that the main positions, when you're talking about the CEO and the COO, will still go before the public and for their appointments. Those are your top paying positions. The port already makes it public on who they're hiring into director roles with public announcements. So there's many ways the public will still know. Now, will you know who the custodian is that's chosen? No, you will not. But for the main key roles, they still stay there and they still go before the commission. So that's not fundamentally changing what the residents get to know about how people are being compensated and who are being put into those top roles that will assist the Human Resources Division in making those final selections.
Thank you, Ms. Jason.
It's time for you guys' closing statements. Ms. Jason, you're up first.
So a vote for yes benefits the residents in the port by creating efficiencies in the hiring process. It's transferring limited authority over to the CEO. It's not giving blanket carte blanche, you pick every position, including yourself and who you want to run the port. The commission still holds power. This is shifting just limited areas. They still will appoint and employ the CEO and the chief operating officer and all commission staff. They will still appoint and pick what positions get to exist to be filled through the budget process, which remains public. So the salary resolution will determine how much they get compensated, and the board still keeps the ability to create bureaus and divisions. So there are many key areas that are not being touched. This is solely shifting limited authority on the hiring for those entry-level positions on up to when you reach through to your directors and managing directors to run the port efficiently, reduce time to hire, and get people into these seats faster. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Jason. Mr. Patton, time for your closing statement.
My counterpart here mentioned guardrails. If guardrails are important, why are we taking some of the most important guardrails away with this measure? What you have to understand is that basically Measure JB and Measure HC are the just trust us ballot measures. Just give us all the power and just trust us to still follow the rules that we were previously forced to follow. This is too much power to concentrate, and it should be a really sort of a red flag to folks, the fact that these things were decided before they even went to city council. The mayor's campaign, which is sending out all this literature to vote for all these measures, he raised nearly $1 million for this campaign before the city council even voted to put these measures on the ballot. This was all worked out ahead of time. And because it's a ballot measure campaign, it's unlimited contributions from the special interests that really control the city. For example, just in the Harbor Commission, I could read out some big figures for you. Thank you. Special interest.
And that concludes our discussion about Charter Amendment HC. A round of applause.
Okay, so we are now ready for our discussion about Measure AC. So I'm going to invite our speakers to come forward as I read the measure out loud for everyone. There's just one speaker. Yes, thank you. Okay, so AC, Long Beach Community College District Affordable Education, Classroom Repair, Career and First Responder Training Improvement Measure. To renovate labs, nursing and vocational job training classrooms, remove asbestos mold, upgrade clean drinking water, electrical and sewer lines, infrastructure, improve safety and security, repair, construct, acquire educational facilities, sites, technology, shall Long Beach Community College District's measure authorizing $990 million in bonds at legal rates be adopted, levying $25 per $100,000 of assessed valuation, generating $55 million annually while bonds are outstanding, requiring audits, oversight, all funds used locally. Okay, so here to support the measure is Uduak Joe Intuk, Long Beach City College trustee. Unfortunately, there is no declared opposition listed in the voter's guide. So Mr. Nuntuk, you have 3 minutes.
Great, thanks, Rolando. Hey, good afternoon and good evening, everyone. I'm Leadership Long Beach Class of 2013. I'm here in my personal capacity to speak about Measure AC. Long Beach City College is the equity epicenter of the city. We have a 100% acceptance rate. No matter your age, your GPA, your SAT score, you can come to Long Beach City College to pursue your dreams and make sure you reach your academic outcomes. For more than 100 years, we've been providing affordable education and credentials, 4-year transferring, and associate's degrees. Over that time, our facilities have aged. We have a number of buildings that are more than 75 years old. We have mold, asbestos, we have pipelines that are cracked, and we have leaks that are roofs that are leaking. These funds will allow us to renovate and repair our classrooms. It will allow us to expand our laboratories. We currently have a wait list on our nursing program because we don't have enough laboratory space. This will also allow us to work with Long Beach Unified to create a middle college where students can earn their associate's degree and their high school diploma while they're in high school. There's a number of benefits this can bring to the community. One, we do have a preference for hiring Long Beach residents and Long Beach City College alumni on construction jobs. It also reinvests in the community. We have an economic study on our website. For every $1 invested in Long Beach City College, there's a $5 return to the community. This measure would also allow us to be eligible for local, state, and federal matching money that we otherwise would not be able to accept. So we can take our local dollars and potentially double and triple them in the future. Additionally, this does have strict accountability, public reporting, auditing, and disclosures. We continue to have a bond oversight of residents and citizens to make sure that the funds are used properly. We've always had clean audits. We've always had our construction program finish all the jobs or all the projects they're scheduled to do. Unfortunately, the previous bond funds have been exhausted. Once our current projects are complete, we would no longer be able to continue to renovate the campus. This increase would be $25 per assessed value, not your market value, your assessed value, which is lower. If you have a house that's assessed at $500,000, that would be $125 a year, less than a cup of coffee a month. And those funds would go to continue the program as far as building and repairing the campus. It requires a 55% threshold of approval from voters. The measure has gained broad support from our foundation, from different faculty classified groups, and a number of other organizations. We do have a website that has our fact sheet, frequently asked questions, and additional information. And folks should have received everything in the mail with the ballot statement. There was no opposition filed because we've done such a great job. We had the unanimous support of the trustees, the majority of the city council, the majority of the board of education, and the mayor.
Thank you, Uduak. So thanks for being here tonight, and let's thank our speaker.
So the last ballot measure that will be addressed tonight is State Proposition 36. I'll read the proposition as it's stated in the voter guide. Allows felony charges and increases sentences for certain drug and theft crimes. Initiative statute. Allows felony charges for possessing certain drugs and for thefts under $950 if defendant has 2 prior drug or theft convictions. Fiscal impact, state criminal justice costs likely ranging from several tens of millions of dollars to the low hundreds of millions of dollars annually. Local criminal justice costs likely in the tens of millions of dollars annually. So let's review the format before we start once again. Each speaker will have 2 minutes to present their case. We'll then ask 3 questions where each speaker will have an opportunity to provide a 1-minute response, followed by a 1-minute closing statement at the end. In order to help you manage, we have CJ over here with her yellow card that turns red. Yellow is 15 seconds you have left, red is you're done. Here to speak to us in support of Prop 36 is Doug Halbert, Long Beach City Prosecutor, and James Suazo, Executive Director of Long Beach Forward, will speak against. We'll start with Mr. Halbert. Please share your 2-minute opening statement.
Good evening, everyone, and thank you, Leadership Long Beach, for putting on this forum. For those of you who do not know me, my name is Doug Halbert. I'm the elected city prosecutor for the city of Long Beach. I've been in that role for 14 years, but I've been a city prosecutor for 25 years. It's very rare that I endorse in any race, including ballot measures, but I've endorsed Proposition 36 in this race because of how important it is to everyone in California, but particularly those of us here in Long Beach. Proposition 36 will increase the penalties for people that repeatedly commit theft offenses and repeatedly commit drug offenses. Under Proposition 47 from 10 years ago, it was always going to be a misdemeanor no matter how many times a person commits theft and drug possession offenses. So Proposition 36 will allow that third or subsequent offense to be elevated to a misdemeanor or felony level. The third thing it does, in addition to theft and drugs, is that it also increases the penalty for selling fentanyl. For some reason, our state makes it a felony to sell cocaine, heroin, methamphetamine, punishable by up to 4 years, but it does not apply to fentanyl. Fentanyl has increased the number of overdose and drug-related deaths across the country, and particularly here in Southern California. In a 5-year period, LA County saw a 3,000% increase in fentanyl-related overdose deaths and poisonings. In Long Beach, when Proposition 47 was passed 10 years ago, there were no fentanyl deaths, and in the last 3 years, we've had an average of 75 deaths a year. Last year, 122 homeless people, died on the streets of Long Beach. It is not compassionate to allow them to continue to die. We have to do something, and that's why I'm supporting Proposition 36.
Thank you, Mr. Halbert. Next, Mr. Suazo, who will speak against the opening statement. Can we have your opening statement? Thank you, sorry.
Oh, good, thank you. Good evening, everyone. My name is James Suazo. My pronouns are he and him. I'm the executive director with Long Beach Forward. I'm also a resident of the 6th District and a proud opponent of Proposition 36. 10 years ago, myself and our organization, Long Beach Forward, campaigned to ensure that voters were educated about the opportunity to make historic shifts in California with Proposition 47. We were able to not only change records, but to literally change people's lives and give new opportunities and second chances when folks were denied housing, were denied public services, were denied jobs purely because of their records and the opportunities that they were denied. Proposition 36 is an extreme measure that will divert billions of dollars from crime victims, schools, and drug treatment programs straight to California prisons. Even myself and City Prosecutor Doug Halbert can agree that it is cruel to let people not have any opportunities or not do anything about that. But we also know that over generations, since the 80s and 90s and the failed war on drugs, that more punishment, incarceration, spending millions and billions of taxpayer dollars over generations to incarcerate people is not a solution. It is not a smart solution. What is smart is giving people the things that they need to be able to survive, whether that's that's drug treatment, whether that's housing, whether that's an opportunity, a job for income, to be able to put a roof over their heads. We know that either any solution is going to require expenses, but we know that we cannot go back to what we were doing for generations and incarcerating folks for small crimes and small extra felonies. Proposition 36 would charge repeat offenders with a felony regardless of the value of their merchandise, provide a sentence of up to 3 years for simply possessing any amount of many drugs, and increase our costly mass incarceration and dangerously overcrowded prisons. And I'm here to ask for your support against Proposition 36. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Suazo.
Let's move on to our first question. We'll start with you, Mr. Suazo. Very recently, Governor Newsom signed some legislation into law that some say will address the issues with crime in our state without having to pass Prop 36. Can you describe how this new legislation will or will not be effective in accomplishing this in comparison to Prop 36?
Thank you for the question. I will admit I'm not an expert on exactly what Governor Newsom and the California legislature passed in terms of their legislative fixes, but what I can speak to is knowing that with Proposition 36, that is going to take us a step backwards, and in not only addressing the solutions that the California legislature and Governor Newsom are doing, but also thinking about the broader picture of how we are addressing not just our homelessness crisis, how we are addressing our drug crisis, how we are providing support for folks who are in need of support, right? And so I think the effort overall between what the legislature is looking at, what we have in front of us as voters, is to ask ourselves, what kind of support are we giving to folks who are in dire need? Is that support going to be drug treatment programs, housing, and those basic needs? Or is it going to say, we're going to lock you up in prison and then not worry about it and expend billions of dollars again in incarceration?
Thank you, Mr. Suazo. Up next is you, Mr. Haubert. Let me repeat the question. Very recently, Governor Newsom signed some legislation into law that some say will address the issues with crime in our state without having to pass Prop 36. Can you describe how this new legislation will or will not be effective in accomplishing this in comparison to Prop 36?
Thank you for the question. And I'm familiar with the legislative package, and I support every single bill that was in that legislative package. I also support Proposition 36. The legislative package largely did not address the problem that we have in LA County, where there is not a consequence that results in a person thinking twice before they commit a drug offense or a theft offense. There was, for example, a measure that expended more funds for treatment, which I completely support. Proposition 47, 10 years ago, was passed by a vote of the people of California. The law cannot be amended unless there's a subsequent vote by the people of California. So Proposition 36 is the subsequent vote by Californians to amend what Proposition 47 did. The legislature cannot amend Proposition 47. It has to go to vote of the people, and that's what Proposition 36 does.
Thank you very much, Mr. Haubert.
All right, so question 2, and we're going to start off with you, Mr. Haubert, this time. Some say the cost of Prop 36 will be significant. Can you describe what would drive those costs and how they would be supported, and if there are any savings in other areas if Prop 36 were to pass?
Thank you. I noticed that the statement behind me has the legislative analyst's estimate for costs. I think it's tens of millions to hundreds of millions. The reason there is such a large spread in what is anticipated the cost would be is because nobody really knows. Number one, you need a prosecutor, a DA, who files it at the felony level. It's a misdemeanor felony wobbler. Not every case has to be filed at the felony level, but Proposition 36 allows a repeat offender to be prosecuted at the felony level. So number one, we don't know how many times a district attorney will opt to file another misdemeanor case or opt to file the felony charge. Also, judges have discretion. You need the prosecutor and the judge to agree to maintain that felony level charge. And then you don't know who's going to take treatment. I think a lot of people are going to accept treatment. So I believe the number of convictions is going to go down, and I believe the number of people that are successfully completing treatment is going to go up. Long term, that is going to be a huge savings to the people of California.
Okay. So, Mr. Suazo, here's question number 2. Some say the cost of Prop 36 will be significant. Can you describe what would drive those costs and how they would be supported, and if there are any savings in other areas if Prop 36 were to pass?
Yeah, absolutely. So building off of what was just shared, one of the things that was so transformative about Proposition 47 is not only did we save money from incarcerating folks, but we redirected those funds into mental health, education, and housing to provide those basic needs that of folks who need support in our communities. So what we can envision that would be the impact of Proposition 36 is we can talk about 1.5 million more people sent to California jails, but we're also talking about putting at risk $750 million removed from successful drug treatment and homelessness prevention programs. We're talking about $300 million taken away from services for survivors of crime, and $10 million less for school-based violence prevention programs. So that, on top of the cost to human lives, to giving people those opportunities, those are the important numbers that we focus on.
Thank you, Mr. Suazo.
And for the third and final question, before we go to closing statements, and this will be to you, Mr. Suazo, first. Would you please share how Prop 36 will address the way the justice system deals with misdemeanors versus felonies for drug users, drug dealers, theft, and other crimes outlined in the wording? And if you don't agree with that it will, what methods would you recommend to address these issues in the interest of public safety?
Great. All right, so I think if I understood the question, so I think in terms of what we've been doing with Prop 47, where we reclassified 6 low-level nonviolent felonies as misdemeanors, that has allowed us to be able to allow folks who are maybe living on the streets or in precarious situations to be able to get the help. Now, we know that process is not easy. It takes time. It makes making sure that we have the resources there and that we're getting people connected to those kinds of programs and those services that are there. As somebody who works in the nonprofit sector for over 10 years, I can tell you firsthand there's a much greater need for resources. So we know that any time that our economy is headed into recession, that we're heading into hard times, it's those social services that are impacted the most. And so this would come at a really unfortunate time because we know that those services, the drug treatment programs, those housing programs, those are programs that help people get on their feet, especially coming out of prison and into those opportunities, are life-changing.
Thank you, Mr. Suazo. Mr. Halbert, I'll repeat the question. Would you please share how Prop 36 will address the way the justice system deals with misdemeanors versus felonies for drug users, drug dealers, theft, and other crimes outlined in the wording? And if you don't agree that it will, what methods would you recommend to address these issues in the interest of public safety?
Thank you. Los Angeles County specifically will be benefited by Proposition 36 because we already have in LA County, in the jail system, a early release program that requires that misdemeanors are released immediately. There is no jail for a person that's sentenced to the maximum that a misdemeanor could be sentenced to. So in LA County, by allowing a prosecutor to file felony charges, there is now an opportunity to get that person into services. I'm proud that the Long Beach City Prosecutor's Office is a national leader in creating diversionary programs to get people into jobs, to get people into housing, to get people into substance abuse treatment or mental health treatment programs. We cannot do it at a large scale with the current law if we do not have the ability to elevate the consequences to felony level for people that continue and continue and continue to break the law. If they are service resistant, the only way they're going to get help is by elevating it to a felony and getting them the care that they need.
Thank you, Mr. Halbert.
We're now ready for our closing statements. Mr. Harbert, we'll start with you. Let's hear a 1-minute closing statement.
Well, I think the 1-minute closing statement is to look at the information about Proposition 36 from the Legislative Analyst's Office. You can also go to voteyesprop36.com, and you will see a long list of elected Democratic and Republican leaders in California that are supporting Proposition 36. You'll see a long list of small business owners, law enforcement groups, social justice organizations. Across the board, polling, it is winning with Republicans and Democrats. And the reason is Proposition 47, although it was well-intended, created some problems in the area of people that will continue to violate the law, not for first-time offenders, not for second-time offenders. Proposition 36 does not change anything for first and second time offenders. It will only affect those that continue to commit crimes, and it will focus on the fentanyl problem that we have that is killing people every single day in LA County and in Long Beach.
Thank you. Mr. Suazo, it's your turn.
So in closing, what Proposition 36 is takes us back. It takes us back to those eras where we were tough on crime, where we just put anybody in jail because we could. And the reality is that compassion works. It's going to take time. I'll add to the list of supporters for Proposition 36, in addition to sheriffs and law enforcement, it also includes large corporations like Walmart, Target, Home Depot, because the shared interest is the bottom line to make more money. When we have more people incarcerated, we are making more money off of that, but we know that we cannot go back, and that's the reason why Proposition 47 passed 10 years ago statewide, also passed by a majority of voters here in the city of Long Beach. It's why the Long Beach City Council did not endorse Proposition 36. It's why the California Democratic Party has opposed Proposition 36, among a number of other community organizations. So I ask for your no vote on Proposition 36. Thank you.
And that concludes our discussion about Prop 36. Let's give him a round of applause.
Okay, we're in the final stretch here. Maybe we should all stand up and do a little stretch if you need that stretch. So we got one thing left. So just as a reminder, the Long Beach City Council is the governing body of the city. The council is composed of 9 members elected from single-member districts for 4-year terms. This year, council seats in even districts are up for election. That includes 2, 4, 6, and 8. We have 1 contested race for Long Beach City Council, and that's in District 4. So here with us tonight is Erlinda Chico and Daryl Supernaw. Y'all want to come on over? And we're going to skip the clerk.
So we'll have the candidates at the end.
Before hearing from our candidates and as they're getting ready, I want to kind of review the format with everyone. The forum will follow a format where the candidates will be asked to make an opening statement. Once each candidate has completed their 1-minute opening statement, the moderator will begin by asking question 1. Each candidate will be asked to provide a 1-minute response to each question. There will be 5 questions. Following the question and answer portion, each candidate will then provide a 1-minute closing statement. Candidates will also have an opportunity to extend their remarks by 1 minute by using that blue bonus card in front of you. This card can be used one time. You will hold up the blue card if you'd like to use it and before you answer the question. Remember, this is a forum, not a debate, so no rebuttal statements will be permitted. We're also counting on all candidates and speakers to support the value of mutual respect. So in order to help you manage the length of your remarks, we're using the card system. A yellow card will be held up when you have 15 seconds remaining, and a red card when you're out of time. So you see CJ right here, and she'll yell time when y'all get that red card. Okay, so we're gonna start with Ms. Chico. If we welcome your opening statement. Ms. Chico?
Thank you. And the opening statement you said was 3 minutes, correct?
Yeah.
1 minute.
So it's 1 minute?
1 minute.
Okay. Well, let me see if I can get this all in. I'm Erlinda Chico. I'm running to be your next city council member for District 4. I have 25 years of experience working in public service for 5 different cities, 2 different elected officials, most recently LA County Supervisor Janice Hahn. I currently represent you on the Board of Trustees, where we're doing really incredible work. But I also have, in that 25 years of experience, I've served as a Parks and Recreation Commissioner, and I worked on expanding opportunities for local artists and small businesses to enhance our open spaces and improve our economy. My year-long work as the co-chair of the Mayor's Animal Visioning Task Force resulted in a strategic plan that garnered critical funding to improve shelter conditions. I've served on the city's mental health report task force, which serves to provide a comprehensive roadmap to address the resources that are needed to properly address mental health here in Long Beach. Oh, that was the yellow card. No, I'm sorry. Thanks.
Thank you, Ms. Chico. Mr. Supernow, please share your 1-minute opening statement.
Okay, I'm going to say testing. Don't take that off my 1 minute, please. Thank you. Good evening, and thanks to Leadership Long Beach and the Aquarium of the Pacific for hosting this event. And thanks to all of you here tonight and those online for attending. I'm Darrell Supernow, and I have served as a 4th District Councilman for the past 9.5 years. I'm very proud of our accomplishments, including the restoration of Fire Engine 17, creation of the Street Racing Takeover Ordinance, and the retail renaissance throughout the 4th District, including the new sports basement that opened last Friday in the former Sears site. I'd like to continue my service as we encounter some very challenging economic times in the future of our city. I would also like to help oversee the largest infrastructure project in the city's history, and that is the $60 million Studebaker Road rebuild set to commence in January. I look forward to continuing a legacy of honesty, integrity, and a positive leadership style that is emblematic of the motto I created, Go Forth. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Supernow.
So let's move on to the first of 5 questions. You have 1 minute to answer this question. Let's start with you, Mr. Supernow. Values are one of the principles integral to Leadership Long Beach. What event in your life has had a significant impact on the values that shape you as a leader?
So I think the values I learned from my grandparents, my parents, and my family. My grandfather, who is buried at Sunnyside Cemetery, and I do an annual presentation there, and Rich Archwell was kind enough to write a wonderful article about it a couple of years ago. He was the first facilities manager at Long Beach City College, and he built the LAZ campus. My dad, Don Supernow, was a Long Beach firefighter, and one of the remarkable things that I got to do as a councilman was I was able to restore a fire engine, Engine 17. And on a very personal note, my dad rode that fire engine for 20 years in service to the city. So I think those are the types of things that shape me and the things I appreciate about the city and my privilege of being a representative. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Supernow. Ms. Chico, I'll repeat the question.
Thank you.
Values are one of the principles integral to Leadership Long Beach. What event in your life has had significant impact on the values that shape you as a leader?
Well, I wouldn't point to one particular event, but the house that I grew up in. I grew up in a house of public service. My grandfather retired from LA County after 37 years. My father retired from LA County after 38 years. My aunt worked for Mayor Yorty and then Mayor Tom Bradley. They instilled in me the importance of civic engagement. My grandparents helped incorporate the City of Commerce because they were so active. That has been a common theme throughout my entire life, is giving back. That's the core of my values. And that's what I do in public service. I continue to work with community members to solve complex neighborhood issues.
Thank you, Ms. Chico.
Okay, let's move on to our next question. We'll start with you, Ms. Chico.
Mm-hmm.
How would the people who have worked with you describe your leadership style?
You know, I've worked for 25 years in the community and in local government. I have an extensive network that I've built, but more importantly, maintained over the years. So I think people would describe my leadership style as inclusive. I want everybody at the table. One of my mentors would tell me all the time, if you and I agree on everything, one of us is not necessary. And I believe that because it's important that we see a perspective that obviously we're missing. Everybody's voice is important, and I plan to really engage and inform our community so that they can participate, they can be engaged. I would never tell a resident not to come speak at a council meeting. We want people to be engaged, and that's what I plan to do.
Thank you. Up next is you, Mr. Superna. How would the people who have worked with you describe your leadership style?
I think how would describe my leadership style? Okay, well,
yes.
I think the word I hear the most from those I work with and the constituents is I listen. That seems to be a unique quality amongst council members, but that's what we spend most of our time doing, is listening to the constituents. The words honesty and integrity are often used, and I add to that the word kindness. We inculcate that in our staff to always allow for the calls you're getting for the constituents to be frustrated. They might have a right to be frustrated, and please treat them in a very kind way so they feel very open, that they're not punished for calling the office. So those are kind of the key words that we hear often, that is listening skills, integrity, honesty, and kindness.
Thank you.
Okay, so we're ready to move on to question 3. Mr. Supernal, you will go first this time. You are both currently elected officials. What is the biggest challenge facing our community, and what specific actions have you taken in your current role to address this challenge?
Well, we have a couple of major issues, and that would be recruiting police officers and homelessness. And it'd be very simple to say we got to do something with the budget, but I'll just tell you what I've personally done. So on the issue of homelessness, a developer came to me and said, we have a great project, but we're dead in the water. These are 76 single unit apartments. It's going to be built in a 5-story apartment building, and we cannot get what they call project vouchers. That is the rent to get this project to pencil out. So I went to our head of homeless services, Allison King, who's now head of our health department, and she offered 45 vouchers and we needed 77. I made a second trip and explained the project and how much I was behind it, and I think I saw a light go off. She said, wow, this is amazing. This is the first project of this type in East Long Beach, and we're just proud of you for supporting it.
Thank you, Mr. Supernal. Ms. Chico, let me repeat the question. You're both currently elected officials. What is the biggest challenge facing our community, and what specific actions have you taken in your current role to address this challenge?
So I have been canvassing a lot. In fact, I was canvassing right before I arrived today. And safety is the #1 priority. And I'll tell you what is surprising to people is that on the east side, we have seen double-digit increases in residential and property crime, and yet another budget passed without any additional funding. And so when residents hear that there could have been some advocacy done before that budget was approved and it wasn't, it shows that we need a different type of leadership, one that can advocate a little bit stronger on some of these critical issues. When I'm hearing from neighbors that their kids' bikes are being stolen off their porches and catalytic converters are being stolen in the middle of the night, it affects our sense of security and safety.
Thank you, Ms. Chico.
Okay, let's move on to our 4th question. This time we'll start with you, Ms. Chico. What are the top 3 issues in the city that you would prioritize, and how will you lead the effort to solve your #1 issue?
So I will kind of piggyback on what I talked about. Can I use this? Thank you. Safety is paramount, right? And so and it affects us in all different aspects of our life. And so we're seeing how we need to improve our Health and Human Services Department and the programs and services that are provided to people experiencing homelessness. We need to do a better job of addressing low-level nuisance crimes on the east side. I really would like to see our park ranger program being brought back to our parks, which is incredibly important. But I've also worked on a river ranger program when I was part of the Lower LA River Master Plan Working Group. And what we did for over 2 years was community meetings of stakeholders that provided input on how we can activate that open space along the LA River. On the east side, we have the San Gabriel River, and we have an opportunity to bring a river ranger program to the east side as well. When I talk to residents about this, it's an innovative idea that they support. I also think that affordable housing is important, and I think the 4th District residents, the ones that I've spoken to, have an appetite for it because their adult children, many families, adult children can't afford to buy or rent in the city that they were raised. And so if we look at different types of housing, we're already doing a lot of student housing, a lot of progress there at LBCC and Cal State Long Beach. That also helps the housing stock because we have college students that are living in our neighborhoods, but also looking at workforce housing. Long Beach families flourished in, thank you.
Thank you. Up next, Mr. Supernaw. Let me repeat the question. What are the top 3 issues in the city that you would prioritize, and how will you lead the effort to solve your #1 issue?
Just the second part of the question, can you repeat it? How would I?
How will you lead the effort to solve your #1 issue?
Okay, thank you. So my top priorities would be, first and foremost, the budget. We have to come up with ways to resolve the future budget issues that we're going to experience. Secondly, I would say public safety, and I'm proud to have the endorsement of both the Long Beach Firefighters Association and the Long Beach Police Officers Association. Third, I would say what we call kind of generically quality of life issues, and that can range from anything you can imagine. I got an email today at 4 o'clock thanking me profusely for removing an encampment on Coyote Creek. If anyone doesn't know where that is, that's east of Norwalk Boulevard and north of Wardlow. Most people don't realize that's in Long Beach. But they said our quality of life changed drastically when that encampment was removed, and they thanked me for stepping in when the local authorities couldn't figure it out. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, it's time for our last question before closing statements. Oh, thank you.
It's time for our last question, like Rolando said. We'll start with you, Mr. Supernaw. The city budget is set for the coming year. However, the following year, when one of you will be on city council, you will have to be part of setting a new budget. We all know there is give and take. Please tell us what areas you would be willing to cut to meet the budget.
Great question, thank you. And I think the current budget was marketed as a no-cut budget. And you're absolutely right. It's going to be different the following year. So fiscal year 26, I think that's the time that we're going to have to make those cuts. I can tell you, quite frankly, what I would not cut. I think everything's on the table. But I told my council colleagues when we restored Engine 17, that was a very heavy lift. People get used to not paying for something, and an engine company is about almost $4 million a year with 12 personnel. So I said, when we get into tough budget times, think long and hard about cutting public safety, in particular a public safety apparatus. As I said, it was very, very tough to get Engine 17 restored. It affects our entire system and response times, and that's the one thing I would not put on the chopping block.
Thank you, Mr. Supernaw. Ms. Chico, let me repeat the question. The city budget is set for the coming year. However, the following year, you may be on the city council. You'll have to be part of setting a new budget. We all know there's give and take. Please tell us what areas you'd be willing to cut to meet a budget.
Well, I'm not going to predict without seeing the actual budget for 2026. That's just not something that we'll do. But I will tell you that we are, I think everybody can agree that it's important that we increase the staffing levels for our public safety. That's really critical because that affects so many areas across the board, but we have to look at the way that we're also addressing public safety. Like I said, these additional resources can actually, we can partner with the state of California, particularly for the River Ranger program, because that's what we did for the lower LA River. We've got to be creative in partnering to find additional funding resources, but also streamline and work on being more efficient with the funds that we currently have. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Chico.
Okay, now we're ready for closing statements. Ms. Chico, you're up first. Closing statement.
Well, I want to thank Leadership Long Beach and all the volunteers because this is so important for the community. I also encourage people to read the Press Telegram voter guide. I think the councilman and I were asked the same questions and provided very different answers, and I think that's another way to also take a look at our different leadership styles. I'm really happy to continue my community service and excited to do it as a city council member, because there is one person in a council office that can introduce and vote on legislation to improve our quality of life, and that's the council member. And that's where the majority of those efforts should be directed. The 4th district is over 51,000 people. It's larger than 42 of the 88 cities in LA County. We need a very robust, strong staff to address all of the complex, ongoing neighborhood issues that we have. Thank you for your consideration.
Thank you, Ms. Chico. Mr. Supernall, your closing statement, please.
Okay, again, thank you to Leadership Long Beach for all the effort that went into hosting this forum. In closing, I'd like to assure every resident of the 4th Council District that if I am re-elected, you will continue to receive the high level of service our council office has provided since 2015. We will continue to publish our Go Forth Friday newsletter that is now up to its 495th edition and that has contained over 8,000 District 4 updates since 2015. I will continue to emphasize public safety and quality of life issues throughout the district, and we will treat every resident and every neighborhood equally. You will get the same attention to detail no matter where you live in our very large district. It has been my honor to serve, and I look forward to continuing our Go Forth legacy. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Supernall.
So, this concludes, thank you to our candidates. This concludes our forum for the position of City Council for District 4. Please join me in thanking them. Good luck. Thank you for everyone for your attention and support. Before you all leave, here's some very important information. Remember, Election Day is Tuesday, November 5th. So if you haven't voted by November 4th, get to the polls. Polls are open at 7 a.m. and close at 8 p.m. It's also the last day to vote by mail. Parking is free tonight, so be sure and get validated before you leave. This concludes tonight's forum. On behalf of Leadership Long Beach and over 2,000 alums of our adult and youth programs, please join me in thanking all our volunteers who helped out tonight. Finally, we would like to thank all of you who took the time out of your busy schedule to become better informed and engage in your community, whether it's in person or out there on YouTube. Have a wonderful evening and be sure to express yourself and vote. Thank you for coming.